From a black base coat, paint all of the armoured areas with Macragge Blue. Any spillage onto any other areas is fine because all the other colours are overpainted darker. Keep the layers thin and it may need multiple coats. This is a better finish than trying to put it all on one layer and clogging detail. Recess shade all of the armour with Leviadon Blue. Some of the areas like the vents of the backpack will be silver later, so just make sure not to waste your time painting areas that won't be blue at the end. This paint is quite thick, so thin it down slightly with a bit of water and make it flow easier, and correct any overspiller mistakes with Macragge Blue before continuing. At this time, remember to paint around all of the individual rivets, and I took the opportunity to paint all of the cabling on the backpack with this colour as well, as it allowed the later colours to sit better. It's not really necessary because we'll be painting them over with black in the next step. Paint all the black areas with Abaddon Black, so this is the casing on the gun and the tubing between the armour panels. I also took the opportunity again to paint all of the areas that were going to be silver with the black, as silver tends to sit better over a black base coat. It probably isn't needed because the Macragge Blue is quite dark, but with the black out you might as well do it all in one go. Paint the silver areas with Iron Hand steel, namely on the gun and on the backpack, and then some of the marines have these weird balls, I suppose, embedded in the armour. It's something to do with the Horus Heresy lore, but I can't remember. Silver balls, paint them anyway. I find in finer detail areas like the cabling and ribbing on the armour on the backpack, when you paint all of the entire thing with silver and then shade it, doesn't really look that pronounced. So I would actually just use it as kind of a slight almost dry brush and just pick out the raised edges. These areas then don't need shading in the next step. Shade the large panel silver areas with Nuln Oil, so again the panels on the gun and on the vents of the backpack. But as I said before, the smaller silver areas I'd leave, any ones that have been kind of almost dry brushed, as it's not needed to add the contrast. Paint the gold edging on the pauldrons with Retributor Armour. Even in these kind of slightly older models, the detail is quite raised, so actually you can get away pretty much just catching it with the edge of the brush. Some of the armour plates are a little bit different, so this one has a more pronounced kind of trim. And just take your time not to spill onto the Macragge Blue, but you can always correct afterwards. Shade the gold areas with Guilliman Flesh. Edge highlight the bolter casing and the ribbing between the armour plates with Eshin Grey. Paint the extreme edges and the raised rivets on the gun with Administratum Grey. I didn't bother putting any second highlight on the ribbing between the plates, but you certainly can if you'd like. It's just quite a finicky job and probably isn't all that noticeable. Edge highlight the silver areas using Stormhost Silver. Edge highlight the gold areas using Liberator Gold. Paint all of the raised edges of the blue power armour with Calgar Blue. This is by far and away the longest step, but it's probably the step that makes the end effect most pronounced. A lot of the edges on the armour is raised, but there are kind of soft edges, even here where you see it kind of spills over. Do your best with it, and anywhere you can't use the edge of the brush, just paint thin lines, and you can always correct any overspill with the Macragge Blue afterwards. There's a lot of edges on the armour. I mean, for an entire squad, I don't know would I bother, but for any characters and the like, edge highlighting the Macragge Blue really does make the armour pop altogether. It's probably worth the time. A second thinner edge highlight on the most prominent areas with Fenrisian Grey. So anywhere around the face detail that's pronounced is probably a good spot. Any of the sharp edges on the backpack, remembering to pick out any of the rivets, because these will always be kind of, I suppose, brightly edge highlighted. And just anywhere else you think is pronounced. And once again, if you paint too much of this, you can always correct with either the Macragge Blue or the Calgar Blue, whichever one is needed. Paint the entirety of the lens, leaving a black border around the edges with Mephiston Red. Paint approximately the front half of the lens with Evil Sunz Scarlet. It's about, I suppose, half again, so a quarter of the front of the lens with the Fire Dragon Bright, leaving the Evil Sunz Scarlet also visible. Dot the very front of the lens with Flash Gitz Yellow. Paint a single dot of white scar right at the back of the lens to complete the effect. And this is the finished result. If you like this video, feel free to check out the channel where I have numerous other painting videos for Warhammer and some videos on other game systems.